welcome back to Seems Legit Garage. Today we're going to go over adding an 8-speed automatic 8 HP to a car that's got a carburetor. In a lot of cases, a lot of guys want to run the 8 speeds on their drag and drive cars or the cars they just want to have fun with. And the reason you do that is because you get better fuel economy, you can drive on the highway, and you can still be fast on the drag strip. There's really no downside. So you might ask how we did this. Because it's carburetor, there's no electronics to sort of tap into. And you're right, there's really almost none. This car runs an MSD ignition box, so it has a crank position sensor, but that's not even required. If you have a distributor, you could still run it this way. Essentially, using the TurboLamik controller and their analog harness, we add a map sensor, we tap into RPM signal, and we add a throttle position sensor. And I'll show you how we did all three. But basically, doing this, we can hotwire the 8-speed to work awesome on the street and the track. So let's dive in and I'll show you some details. Okay, so here's the carburetor. This is a good old American carburetor. The air goes in here, the gas goes in here, it does things, run good. So this cable right here is what connects your foot to the arm that controls the carburetor. So what we did is we added a TPS sensor using a string type potentiometer. See this little wire right here? This little wire, as it pulls out, changes the voltage output by the sensor. So essentially, we can see the voltage change as he's driving, and that tells us our throttle position. So all this stuff works in tandem with totally factory stuff. We just built this little bracket on this spring return it had already and added the sensor. So we wired this directly to the TurboLamik analog input, 0 to 5 volt. We scaled it in the software, and then voila, we have TPS. The next thing we did is we added a map sensor, and let's go to that next. Right here, we used a Link map sensor. You can pretty much use any map sensor because you can just scale it in the software again. So we connected the map sensor right here with this little vacuum hose to a fitting that goes on the manifold. It was just a little plug before, so I just took it out and put a little nipple fitting and ran the vacuum to the map sensor. So this way, the engine, we know how much load the engine is making. So basically it's a torque calculation based on TPS, the manifold pressure, and the RPM. And that's how we create a torque table to control the transmission's behavior. So the last thing we did is we hooked up the RPM signal to the tachometer signal from the MSD ignition unit. This can be any sort of tachometer signal. We run the same, we have a signal converter for people still running distributors that are like actual distributors. This car is a dummy distributor with a MSD box. So we just tapped into that signal and ran it off of that. So now we have our RPM, our TPS, and our map sensor, which is all that's required to run the analog style operation of the TurboLamik controller. And as we see behind the seat, we have the TurboLamik mounted right here, ready to go. So we mount it right here nice and out of the heat. And as you come up here, you can see we run the 8 HP 10-pin 8-speed shifter. So this shifter gives you manual and sport modes, normal drive mode, course neutral, reverse, but also when we go and we hold back, we can go into trans brake, and then also when we go back and hold trans brake and we hit park, we can actually bump the car forward a little bit to get into the staging lines. And that helps a lot, especially if you have a turbo car and you're trying to build boost and move forward a little bit. So right here we have the TurboLamik LCD screen. This tells us our temperature and our modes. You have both manual modes and auto modes, and you can set each one independently for different driving styles. This is going to change your map a little bit. And you just change the map using this little toggle switch. So those were included with the bundle. Of course, the shifter works like normal, and you can also use the Dodge Charger shifter or a CAN keypad or any sort of other inputs you want to assign the shifting to. But of course, this shifter, everything's sort of built into one, and I do suggest this one. It works great. All right, as you can see here too, we have our park lock. So what this does is when the transmission is off, it will always return to park once it sees a safe position. So what we can do, if let's say right now we're in lower position, the car is in park because the engine is off. But if we needed to load this on a trailer with a winch or something, what I would do is just pull this up and it would push us into neutral, and we can therefore push the car around. So this is our park lock. We have this in the store, works really nicely. I guess now let's go over a couple details of how to swap the transmission. So a couple details about this is we use our small block Chevy Dodge 8HP70 adapter kit. So basically what this is really similar to our LS kit, but has a different crankshaft pattern to accommodate the more traditional small block Chevy crank pattern and offset, which is slightly different than LS. With that being said, it's the Dodge 8HP70. If you have a ton of power, you can go to 8HP90. At the end of the day, the 70 covers most people. This is a completely stock transmission. All we do is remove the mechatronics, solder in the PCB board, which we offer as a service if you don't want to do it yourself, and then put it back in the transmission. And then once we have it all squared away and wired, TurboLamik has great support. You call TurboLamik or you email TurboLamik and you start setting up a time for them to log in. They log in remotely and they can help you set it up. They did so with us to help us, we do a lot of tuning here with all different types of transmission controllers, but the transmission control support for TurboLamik was really good. Within an hour of being online with them, we got everything squared away and we were driving around testing, and it's been awesome. So Jeff just got back from 2 different drag and drive events We did Rocky Mountain Race Week and Sick Week. Everything went well. We made it. Car's back in one piece. The car leaves and does about a 12. It's got a small block Chevy 406. So this is basically the old school. Jeff thinks he probably has an 11.6 in it if he figures out how to shift properly. But we'll work on that. I want to get Transbrake working in auto mode so that he can have a little more consistent upshifts for the track. But other than that, it's been awesome. Little things we did on this car as well were keep the original oil cooler out front. So it had a TH400 in it, I believe. We kept the oil cooler and we just tapped into it for the 8-speed. It's hidden behind right in front of the radiator. So it has Wilwood front brakes and wheel bearing assemblies. Can't see those either. We made a little trailer for the wheels for carrying between events. We changed the wheel setup to be a much more reasonable size tire because it ran a 16-inch tire. When you're running a small block Chevy car, we definitely don't need 16 inches of tire in the ground. It's just really hard to deal with. But yeah, I'll give you guys a little show of how this thing works and how it drives around.
Give her the gas!
See this right now. Chris is riding this cooler like a that. There's no passenger seat, so.
All right, I got a sick position.
So this is life in the 8-speed El Camino. So we did put a higher stall converter in this because it does have a crazy idle on it. It basically is like 3,000 stall converter, but it drives pretty sweet. So the way this car takes off, because it has a high stall converter, is the TurboLamik has different ways of setting up take-up. This take-up is engaged by both the clutches and the converter. So when I go into drive, it really doesn't pull forward at all, see? It's not until I really get the throttle on until it really like pulls forward, see? Not moving, but now I hit the gas.
Oh yeah.
Look how nice that is. This thing drives around like a sweet little muffin of a car.
Muffin of a car.
It's a sweet
It's
little
got a big hood scoop. Such an automatic.
Those downshifts. So this is no lifts up. This car has no torque management. So for it to drive this smooth is really impressive. So basically what I mean by torque management is we're not reducing torque on upshifts and we're not flipping the throttle on downshifts. And so because most modern ECUs have that, that's the main way you tune nice drivability. By the TurboLamik having so many tuning abilities, we're able to accomplish still a very nice driving car with none of that. We're just going through gears. We go down a gear, boom. Engine braking, amazing.
It's like nice in here.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
Alright, check out this downshifting, guys. Engine braking downshifts. And this is with no flips. That's so smooth. I love that. Now I'm going to turn this wheel around. Oh no, we're not going to make it. Alright. Go into reverse. Retain still amazing drivability. Go into drive.
Crank the wheel.
Crank the wheel. This thing
Manual steering.
This thing needs a trucker knob. But let's give it some gas. Look how sweet that thing is.
I mean, that's pretty dope. Pretty good considering I'm fucking sitting on a cooler.
This thing's so smooth you don't even need a real seat.
You don't even need a real seat. Haley's gonna love this thing around town.
Oh, rolling burnout.
Hell yeah. This thing is a hoot.
This is great. Can I do a little donut? I'm just kidding, I won't flip over.
Yeah, I will roll and die. I'll I'll break my neck. My head's already on the roof.
TurboLamik has trans brake and bump features. These are super fun. So we're in manual mode. I'm in first gear. I'm gonna pull back on the shifter. We're on trans brake.
Sick!
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right, now I'm gonna show you guys bump. Bump is pretty sick too. We're gonna pull back. We're in trans brake. But now I'm gonna touch this button on top.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at that. Look at that. We're freaking.
We're bumping, baby.
I just shifted way too many times.
I didn't want to die. Thank you.
Yeah, I went to fourth gear there. That's how fast it shifted. It was like one shift for a normal transmission. Okay, it's tight. The bump feature is awesome for getting in the lights. The trans brake works so nice. I love this shifter because it's so simple. Everything's integrated into one.
This is OEM BMW, baby.
Oh yeah, baby. All right, boys and girls. Basically, TurboLamik's the tits. If you got a drag car with analog signals, there's no other setup that's gonna work as well as this for just having 3 signals. If you got an old school car and you're a little bit of a boomer and need some tech support, TurboLamik's got you covered on both ends. I suggest that we have it in the shop and we can make your life easier.